Hello, welcome to Geeking Out with Shad. Today I want to add a couple more tags here to show you what they do. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about terminology. This is where we left off with the first tutorial, and in this tutorial I want to talk a little bit about what nesting is. First of all, in order to understand nesting, we need to understand that each HTML tag has what's called a begin tag and an end tag. The end tag has a / in it. So this is the begin tag of HTML and the end tag of HTML. And here's the beginning tag of head, the end tag of head, and the beginning tag of body, end tag of body. And you can see that each one of these tags has an end. Here I have it all in one line. It's fine that you do it that way. This is just formatting because I like to keep my code looking relatively clean. So you'll notice the title, I just wrap it around the title to keep it clean looking. Beginning tag, end tag, things like that. All right, so what nested means is that you have a tag nested inside of another tag. So here's the beginning tag of head and the end tag of head, and the title tag is nested inside of it. So that terminology is important to understand. Another terminology we use to kind of refer to the same thing is we use what's called parent and child. So the parent is the head tag, the child is the title tag of the head tag. So this parent-child relationship sometimes works. So if somebody says, what are the children? Then you'd say title. Or what's the children of body? You'd say H1P. But you can have children of children, and you can continuously nest tags indefinitely. So I can have tags inside tags inside tags, and I can just go indefinitely. And we'll definitely be doing that in this application at some point. And we'll talk about why you do such a thing at that point in time. But today I basically just want to talk about these next two tags, which are something common you'll see on a web page. So I'm going to go to here. Let's get rid of that because that's what I'm going to talk about. So the first one I want to talk about is what's called an anchor tag, and it defines a hyperlink. The term anchor is a little weird, but what's kind of cool about this documentation, I'll link it in the description, is you can click on that tag in this documentation and it takes you to more details about what that tag does. So I really like this site, W3C Schools, or W3 Schools, I guess there's no C, but it's from an organization called the W3C, so that's why I made that mistake. Anyway, come down here and you can see the notes about them. You can see what browsers this tag is compatible with, all of that stuff. What's important down here is the what are called attributes. So you'll see this attributes, and these are all the attributes that an anchor tag can have, right? And the one we're going to talk about today is Href. So I'll explain to you what an attribute is and how it works. So Href, what the value that goes inside of it is a URL, and it specifies the URL of the page the link goes to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an anchor tag like this. We're going to put an Href attribute in it. We're going to put Google as the URL inside of there, and then we'll be able to go onto this page here, click on it, and it'll take us to Google. So pretty cool functionality to learn right off the bat when you're a beginner, to see, hey, cool, I can make links that go to other pages, right? So let's go here and do that. So we're going to go here, we're going to go underneath the paragraph tag, or actually better yet, let's go inside. Let's say link me to, and then we're going to put this anchor tag in here. So at first I'm just going to do this, and then I'll add the attribute later. Alright, so you can see it says link me to Google, and then let's put an exclamation point, because we are excited about linking to Google, right? Everybody is. Okay, now we can go look at the page and you'll see that Google is now there. Actually, I just noticed that because I haven't put the href in there, it's not showing as a link yet, which makes sense. So moving into 2021, wasn't that long ago that you would have seen this as a link and it just wouldn't take you anywhere, but the browsers have gotten smart and realized, hey, there's no link, no href in there, so I shouldn't make this a link, right? So browsers are getting smarter, which is kind of cool. So we go back here, and so we have this anchor tag, and it really doesn't mean anything at this point, so it just looks like plain text, right? Now let's go in here and add, where my cursor did not click in there. There we go. Let's add the href. Now here's how attributes work. An attribute is anything that goes inside of the HTML tag, and they're usually used to define different things that you want this tag to do. In this case, href is, and we'll just look back at the documentation, href. The value is going to be a URL. Where do you want to go? Specifies the URL of the page the link goes to, right? So when you read that, you come back here and you go, okay, well, I want this to go. The syntax for that is to put an equal sign. So you're saying href equals and then a double quotes, and then we're going to do Google. Actually, I bet Google's secure now, so we're going to put the S in there. I don't know if they do the www anymore, but they don't care. They'll just strip that off. So there we go. So, and I forgot my 2 forward slashes. So, I am forgetting. Yes, I have that correct. Don't do something for a while, you get a little rusty. There we go. So there's the full link, https google.com, and then we closed it with single quotes. So don't forget to add that quote. And what's cool about these IDEs and Visual Studio Code is if you forget the quote, you can see that something isn't right. All the rest of your code is no longer formatted properly, so then you can go and look at why. But as soon as I add that quote, everything formats properly. Pretty cool. So we're going to go ahead and save that. We're going to reload, and notice how that now looks like a link. So link me to Google, and we're going to click on that, and it takes us to Google. Pretty cool, right? Let's just say we wanted this to pop out into its own page. There's a little trick for that. So if you go back to here and you look at the documentation, you can look at this target, right? And it specifies where to open the link document. And I haven't done this in a while, but let's, I think if I do underscore blank, it will take me to a new tab. Let's try it and see. This is another thing you can do, is you can experiment with these things and see what happens, and it won't ruin anything. You can't break anything by experimenting. So I believe what this is now going to do is when I click on Google, it should open it in a new tab. Yep. The first click I did kind of failed. So there we go. See how it Trail Reports is still here and Google opened in a new tab? That's a very common thing to do, because if I'm on this site and I click on Google and I go to Google site, now I lost the site that I was on. So it's really common that when you click on links, they'll open it in a new tab for you, and then you can always go back to that site that you're on. So it's a cool trick to learn. Target underscore blank, right? And that's another attribute. Attribute, value of the attribute. value of the attribute. So you look at the documentation and they talk about the value here and the attribute name, and then what does it do. So the documentation comes in really handy if you want to learn things, and there's a ton of different attributes you can use for a link, and won't get into all of those today, but it's definitely something you want to learn. You can already see if you had a file and you had it as a download in the file name, that would download a document rather than open to a new link, things like that, right? So let's talk about one more and we will end this tutorial. The next one I want to talk about is another common thing you see on pages is the button tag. So if you basically want to, is you can just copy and paste code right out of here, put it in your IDE and try it. Let's just do it rather than me typing it. Kind of a little trick you can learn. Copy, and then we'll just paste it right in there. Let's just put the button after the paragraph on its own. And so now we have, and it's nice because if you look at this, this is a different kind of formatting for whatever they're using on this site, and you go in here and the formatting for this IDE is similar, right? So it's cool to be able to kind of see what different things are, and even here in this IDE it'll even explain to you what the different things are, right? Kind of cool. I believe even in here, if I do this, it'll give me suggestions on what I could put in there. Let me get it to clear first. Yeah, look at that. Button, menu, reset, submit. So it even gives you, this is why I like Visual Studio Code, is it helps you kind of suggest what you can put in there, and so you make fewer mistakes. Alright, so let's take a look at this button. Let's save it. Go back to the page. Go here, hit reload. Boom, there's a button. Click me. Right? So let's talk about that button. Notice there's an attribute in there called type, because there's other buttons that do different things. You can specify what you want them to do. One of the types you can see in here is submit. I haven't really used these two so much, but the main ones I use is button and submit. And submit is for submitting a form. And I don't have a form here, and I'm not going to get into forms yet, but that's what that's for. But if we just say it's a button, that's all it's doing, is it's a button. And we haven't put any action to this button yet. There's another attribute which is called onClick, and notice how that suggestion thing came down and gave me the options. And then inside of here we would have what's called JavaScript function, and we haven't even gotten to that yet. But basically you would put a function in here that can get called that does something when you click on this button. So, and to probably get you more excited about where we're going with this, this is pretty cool when you start getting to this level and start making buttons be able to do things. We won't get into that today, but just letting you know that'll be in the future. So for now we're going to just take the onClick off because I don't want it there in the future. So today we learned about nesting. So titles nested in head, how we reference the different things. Parent, child, body is the parent, H1 is the child, paragraph is the child, button is the child. All three of these are children of body, right? And technically the anchor tag is a child of paragraph, but in this case this paragraph is kind of all embedded in there to display as a paragraph on the page, as we see here, right? So more to come, but this is the very bare bones basic of how web pages work. So that'll end this tutorial. This is the second one of 2 of them, so if you haven't watched the first one to see how I got to here, watch that. They should show up in order if you click on the videos tab on YouTube, and you can watch them in the proper order, the first one then the second one, because if you skip steps it'll get confusing really fast, especially as we get into more advanced things. Really appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.